We're going to get Simply Ask Lauren with us. How you doing, Lauren?
Hi. Sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing? Are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
I am. I am 26 and I am a believer
Cool.
in Jesus.
Sure. I mean,
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you clarifying
Sorry.
because that would have been my next question.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for having me on. First of all, I just wanted to address a couple of the things that were said by some of the previous guests, if that's okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that I was listening in on the conversation with, I think you were talking about David and Nathan
Hmm.
and the prophecy and God commanding. I think you were saying, I don't know what's allowed to say on TikTok, but you know the conversation that I'm trying to talk about,
Hmm.
just avoiding those keywords. Um, I was just going to say that this specific passage, Nathan was a prophet at the time, right?
Hmm.
So this is a prophecy to David, not a command directly from God commanding them to do that to those women.
I
It's a
didn't
prophecy from Nathan.
I didn't say that it was a command.
Right, I know, but I think that the guy did before. He was
Oh,
saying that it was like, why would God allow, or actually not allow, it was saying, why would God tell people to do that to the wives? Like, why would they be taken and all of that?
well,
It's a prophecy.
it says he
Oh, go ahead.
causes
Sorry.
it,
I have to read. I'll have to pull it up. Oh, it's right there.
right?
Thank you. That's
In
helpful.
Second
So
Samuel, sorry, I typoed. It should be 24, not 14. Second Samuel
it's okay.
24.
Right. It says, out of your own household, I'm going to bring calamity on you. Before your very eyes, I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. That's the verse, right? 11.
Yeah, yeah. So God says, I'm the one doing it. I'm the one raising up trouble.
Right. So he's not saying it like that. I can understand why you read it that way, but he's talking about later
That's,
on
but
in
that's what
16.
it says.
Right.
It,
So in 2 Samuel 16:22, Absalom sleeps with his father's concubines on the roof in the palace of
yeah.
Jerusalem. So it's a
Hmm.
prophecy in the side of Israel that later comes to him being essentially that's what's happening,
And
right? So
and
that
it was a
prophecy becomes
punishment.
fulfilled. Well, it was something that Absalom did, not
It,
God.
it was a punishment.
It is punishment by Absalom because it's embarrassing his father. So
No,
in the
it's
sense that,
punishment by God.
are you implying that God forced Absalom to do that, or what do you mean by that?
I'm saying he inspired it, forced it, whatever you want to call it. God's the one that caused it to happen. God says, you did this thing secretly, but I'm going to do it openly.
So I think that because God already knows that it's going to happen, because theoretically, like he's omnipotent. Yeah, I can't speak. He knows all, right? So I think that he already knows this is going to happen, and in the sense that his son is from the bloodline that he's from, it's like he's prophesying that. But I guess if you want to say that he put it in his head, as if that's your argument, like
Well,
maybe I can understand that
but it's not a
reading, but
punishment if God didn't do it.
it can be because it's like if your kids embarrass you publicly, that can feel like a punishment based on the sin that you did privately.
No, so if God knew it was going to happen regardless, right? If the thing was only ever going to happen because he knew Absalom was going to do it, then it's not a punishment for David's sin.
I see what you're saying, but I think that it just happens to be like the plan based on what it is. Like he already had the punishment in line because he already knew the sin was going to happen, and so the punishment came because of that
If
reason.
David didn't sin with Bathsheba, would this event still have happened?
That's a great question. I obviously I can't answer that, but
Well, the answer is no.
that's a good question to ask.
The answer is no,
It's
because
not
it's a
with Bathsheba
punishment.
though, but the fact that did he not have also multiple wives that he wasn't supposed to have as well?
Oh no, you're allowed to have multiple wives. The Bible just says do not have a multiplicity of wives, which is like an idiom for having a lot of wives. But there's no like text in the Bible that gives you a specific number. Like is 10 too many? I don't know. We're not really told.
Well, the Bible says it's supposed to be between one man and one woman, so I feel like that part is
No, it
clear.
certainly doesn't.
Well, we see characters not follow that, and we see characters have multiple wives, but just because characters in the Bible do things doesn't mean that it's correct. In the
Well,
same way,
God commands them
go
to have
ahead.
multiple wives.
Where?
Oh yeah, both in Deuteronomy 25 and Exodus 21, God gives laws for having multiple wives. Deuteronomy 25 specifically.
Well, that's the Mosaic law. I'm
Yeah,
not saying that. So this also brings up the other point that I was going to talk about, but I can address this first. I'm not an expert in this specific thing because I'd have to actually pull up that verse, and I try not to pull things out of context. But I think this is more guidance based on what they're already doing. What was the verse you
So
said? Deuteronomy
God gave
25.
them laws to do the stuff they were already doing.
No. God gave. There were laws in place, Mosaic laws, to govern what was happening and what was culturally going on at the time. So, for example, I know y'all were talking about slavery earlier. So you were right when you said that there were different types of both servants and slaves. So you were mentioning how there was like indentured servitude, and then there was also slavery. And the slavery specifically, it kind of came from more so like the foreign concept of slavery, and that happens in Leviticus. But in Deuteronomy, the first verse that y'all talked about from my memory was Deuteronomy, and it was in chapter 15.
So God gave laws according to the foreign nations.
So talking about specifically slavery in Deuteronomy 15, he's talking about the people of Israel, and he says that those people at the time, if you committed a crime, or if this is the people we're talking about, if you committed a crime or if you were in debt, you could choose to sell yourselves as servants, and then those are the people that got the 6 years.
If you're Hebrew,
the Israelites, right? If you're an Israelite,
right, and if
when
you're a
he's talking
foreigner, they
about-
own you for life.
So, as a foreigner in Leviticus, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's talking. You're right. He does say that they can have you for life. And the alternative to those people, they didn't have any land. They came from another place where they were also slaves, and they were not
But what do you mean they
treated.
didn't have any land?
So the people
How do you know that?
who came, how do I know that?
Yeah.
Because they came from a foreign land surrounding Israel as slaves.
Doesn't say that.
Yes. Let me pull it up.
Show it to me.
Yeah, 1 second. I have to pull it up. Because a lot of the land, let me see if it does say verbatim.
It doesn't say it. I'll just cut you off at the pass. It doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't make any
regardless-
statement as to how the slaves became slaves, because God doesn't care how they became slaves. He only cares that you're allowed to own them for a particular time period. And according to the Bible, you can own them for life. You can also own for life the children that are born into
Okay, here we go.
slavery.
I'm sorry. It says from them, implying like in verse 44, from the nations that are around you, from them you may buy male and female slaves. So they were already slaves in the lands among them. That was the point that I'm making.
First of all, it doesn't specifically say only people that are already slaves, because we see in Deuteronomy that you can kidnap people from those towns. So you can get slaves through war, you can get slaves through birth, you can get slaves through acquiring them. They could be paying
You're
out.
talking about the difference between like if a land is overtaken versus if it already exists.
Both.
And a couple of other
in both
differences.
instances, you can make slaves. But I don't really care how they became a slave. The fact that God says you can own a slave for life, I think, is silly.
I understand your point of view. I am just saying that at the time, and this is going to sound strange when I say it, but at the time, slaves, in this particular verse, it's talking about slaves that were already slaves in other lands. And he's saying that you can buy male and female slaves from them. It doesn't mean that they were legally acquired or anything like that.
And you could
because
buy children. Like somebody can sell you their children as slaves.
That's a separate verse, but in
Same-
verse 44
same verse.
specifically, we'll go through. Children come in verse 45.
Yeah, I know.
In
Exactly. You can
44
just buy children as slaves. I know.
Right. So in 44, well, I'll get to 45, but in 44, it's talking about you can buy male and female slaves from nations surrounding Israel. My point is that the slavery that they would experience in the surrounding nations, and I understand your argument is that no slavery is good. I am just saying that the slavery in the surrounding nations at the time was Harambe's law, I believe is what it's called.
You mean
And they were not-
Hammurabi?
Yes, is what I meant. not the gorilla, sorry. I always mix that up. It was Hammurabi's law, and they were treated very, very poorly most of the time. I'm sure there's exceptions.
How do you know that?
Because in that law, which was followed most frequently, they had allowed. Let me pull it up.
So I've got Hammurabi's law code. By the time this was being written, Hammurabi wasn't completely being practiced. Right now, we're probably referring to the Assyrian law code.
Well, regardless, slaves really weren't held in the highest regard, and they weren't treated very properly.
Well, they were treated like slaves, just like the Bible tells you to treat them.
Well, no, that's where we maybe disagree.
Well,
Now, I
the
see what
Bible
you're
says you
saying
can beat
earlier,
your
where it
slaves and
says
you
to
can treat
do.
them harshly.
The Bible says not to spare the rod, but it also says the
Yeah.
same thing in regards to children. But the rod is has a symbolic meaning. A rod and a staff is something that God also guides us with
So
as Christians.
do you
It's
think
a
it was okay to
guidance.
beat slaves?
The Bible says specifically, it's really clear on how to treat slaves, that you're not supposed to treat them. You're not supposed to mistreat them. You're supposed
Doesn't
to
say that.
take care of them. It does. It
Show me the
says, hold
verse.
on, 1 second. Look at all these tabs. Man, I wish I had marked these. Let me see.
Yeah, I get those Bible tabs.
I know. Well, I was looking at the original Hebrew too. I like that you did that earlier, because I like to do that as well. It's super important to look at the actual terminology of what's being said.
It can help.
But I mean, it just goes across the entire Bible in general. But I will find, if I can find a verse. If I don't find it at this moment, I'll find it and probably put it in the comments if I can.
I don't think you'll find it.
But the Bible talks about treating your slaves and all of these rules that the slaves get in general in Israel, and the servants in Israel. They're foreign concepts to people at the time. Like, it's easy for us
Like
to
what?
look at slavery through the
Give an example.
concepts. Sure, like the idea that you get to, for the Israelite slaves, for example, the idea that you get to get paid after you leave for the 6 years, or the idea that you even can leave for the 6 years, or the idea that you're not supposed to be slaves are.
In
Sorry,
the
masters are
Hammurabi
not,
law code, you could go free in your 4th year.
but you just said they didn't follow that law.
Yeah, I'm using the law that you're comparing the Bible to. You're the one comparing it to the law code of the ancient Near East. And in the ancient Near East, quite often, you didn't have to serve for a full 6 years. You can serve for only 3 years.
So then it wasn't a true slavery, it was servitude.
Yeah. It was indentured servitude if you're an Israelite.
Well, that's not slavery, though. You can't compare indentured servitude.
If you're an Israelite.
Oh, so for Israelite slaves.
This is for Israelites, so it's not for foreigners.
Do you feel like Israelite slaves at the time were treated harsher than slaves from surrounding environments?
No, I think they were treated roughly the same.
Let me see if I can find the Bible verse. Because the entire Bible itself talks a lot about like how to treat others, right? Like, it talks about treating others better than we treat ourselves. Like, those are key points in the Bible.
But it doesn't say anything about how to treat your slaves.
Well, they're others. So why should I have to specify specifically
In
saying
fact,
slaves and slaves?
Of the foreign slaves, God specifically says you can treat them harshly. It says you may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness. So he's saying these foreign slaves, you can treat them harshly, just not your fellow Israelites.
Colossians. Maybe Colossians 4. Let me double check.
You probably want Ephesians chapter 6 when Paul says to treat your slaves fairly the same way.
Colossians 4. Masters, provide your slaves with what is right and fair, because you know that you also have a master in heaven.
Yeah, so what?
But yes, also you could use Ephesians 4. So those two would be good verses on like how you're supposed to be treated.
Did Moses give them Ephesians?
That came later.
Okay,
But these were
so
also
between Moses and Ephesians, what was dictating how they treat their slaves?
The rest of the law that pertained to everything, and the relationship with God, God's character, and the 10 Commandments as well.
Well, the law says you can beat your slaves and treat them harshly.
The law says that you can discipline your slaves, but you should, and if it actually prevented well, it should have, just like every law should, theoretically. But it says that you can, it was the first protective measure that slaves really ever had, essentially.
Oh, that's not true
because
at all.
There's not another law. Well, where's the other laws in other, can you show me another law in another nation at the time that had any regulation for slavery other than like setting them free, but like beating them wise?
No, there's almost no nation that tells you like how much you can beat them or like under what circumstances you can beat them. There are specific law codes on what to do, like if a slave is caught stealing, there's law codes for that. But again, the Bible doesn't prohibit you from beating your slave severely. Have you read Exodus 21?
Yes, it doesn't say it, I think, in Exodus 21.
It does.
Says it. Let's see.
Exodus 21, 20 through 21 literally says, when a slave owner strikes a male or a female slave with a rod and the slave is unalived immediately, the owner shall be punished. If the slave survives for a day or two, there's no punishment because the slave is the owner's property. So if you accidentally unalive your slave because you beat them so severely, then you're not going to get punished for it. There's only 3 prohibitions against beating your slaves. One, you can't immediately kill them. Like, you can't just go out and murder your Hebrew slave. Number
Right. So
two, number two, you can't knock out their eyes or their teeth because they need that for survival.
right. And that's like, I mean, I guess if you want to, you don't want to pick and pull it, but I would say that would probably imply the mistreatment would be not a good thing, right? And the same, and we see that. And I guess my example for that
Well,
would
if you're
be look
Hebrew.
at Hagar. One more time.
If you're Hebrew.
Sorry.
So Exodus 21, remember, Exodus 21 is regulating the treatment of Hebrew slaves.
They shouldn't be. Yeah, but God, multiple times in the Old Testament, there shouldn't be a differentiation when it comes to the treatment of others.
Oh,
The difference in
there
this
is.
particular case where Hebrew slaves can leave after 6 years, there is that. But that's because they probably, well, depending on why they became slaves in the first place. It could be
Foreigners,
different than a foreigner.
foreigners are given a different law code altogether than the natives. So, for example, when lending money, right? You can't charge interest when you lend money to an Israelite. You can charge interest when you lend money to a foreigner. If you own a foreigner slave, they're your slave for life. When you own a Hebrew slave, they're
Right.
typically your slave for 7 years or 6 years, and they go free in the 7th year.
Foreigners residing in the Israelite community didn't have any land or anywhere else to go if they were slaves from somewhere else. They wouldn't have had any of those things to go back to. So
That's
you
not-
could
that's
keep.
not the
I
case.
think that the law. Now this may be the way that I read it, but when I read that, well, why do you think that's not the case? You think that their community where they were slaves would just give them land when they came back, or?
So you're assuming 2 things. One, that the foreigner who becomes a slave just doesn't have anything. The second assumption that you're making is that matters, which it doesn't, by the way. It doesn't matter if they
why
own
do you say
anything. They should still be able to go free. Jacob didn't own anything when he left.
But the Bible
Should
says
he have been
that
someone's
if
slave?
the Bible says that if a slave runs away, that you have to just let him go. So I mean, if they
No,
have
it
the
definitely
option to
doesn't say
leave-
that.
Hold on, let me find
That's
it.
Deuteronomy 23:15, and your translation is lying to you if it says that.
You're saying it's 23:15. Let me see if that's where I'm looking. I have too many tabs.
Justin, the other thing I'm thinking about here in this situation is that you have an alleged all-powerful God who has all options available, and he goes out of his way, allegedly, in Leviticus 11, to say what fish you can eat and leave a bunch of other fish. And he says all this stuff about fish and so forth and shellfish or whatever. But you can't just say, don't own other people as property and treat people very well.
Right, yeah.
He says
So, for
he says treat
example,
people
if
very well multiple times.
well, he
but
doesn't say anything
doesn't
about doing that to your
exclusively like that.
slaves. If God said, listen, when you buy a foreign slave, make them serve for 6 years, and in the 7th year, send them free, just like a Hebrew slave. If that's what the book said, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But that's not what the book says. The book says that you can beat them, you can treat them harshly, and you can own them for life.
It does. Where does it say treat them harshly?
I just read it to you. It's verse
Let them have
46.
among you.
Leviticus 25:46.
This is okay. So Deuteronomy is Deuteronomy 15:16 that you just mentioned a second ago. You were
Those-
talking about like if a
those are
slave
about-
has taken refuge with
those are
you.
about-
That's about a slave that ran away from somewhere else.
Deuteronomy 23 is the one I'm just referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a different context. I see what you're saying.
It's not a
You're
different
right.
context.
That's not what I was talking about. Well,
There's-
that's
there's-
talking about somebody running.
There's not a
away
single
to
passage
you.
in the Hebrew Bible that addresses runaway Hebrew slaves.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's what I'm saying. I understand your verse.
But
The other point is that the other point here, of course, the overarching theme is that what we're talking about here is far more consistent with people of the time and what they believed and what they were writing, not a loving God who's all powerful and all loving and loves his creation. That's the point.
right. Yeah. The point is, if God is all powerful, all knowing, and all loving, this law code is inconsistent with those properties.
But that's a moral being saying that they're more just and moral than the infinite God.
No,
Which
I'm
you
saying
can say if you want to, but
no,
and that's where
I'm
we
saying
disagree
because
morally.
this God is inherently not moral, I'm unlikely to believe that this God is good for the same reasons we've already covered. God is okay with slavery. He's okay with people taking other people's freedom. He's okay with women being punished through grape for crimes they never committed.
So we already addressed that. That's not accurate.
Well,
That was
no, it
something
is
that
accurate.
happened.
We did address it.
No, it's not.
It
We did
is.
address it. And Absalom did that on his own accord, and it had
No,
nothing to do
literally,
with
you're
God
just up here
commanding
lying because we already read it twice, and we'll read it again since you didn't hear it the first time. God says, "I
can read
will,
it again.
I will do this thing." He says, "I will do it."
Absalom does it.
No, God
It's
says,
a prophecy from
I will
Nathan.
do it. God
Nathan is
says,
actually the one
"I
speaking.
will raise up trouble against you
Actually,
from within
Nathan
your
is the
own
one
house."
speaking. If you go back and read the
He says, "I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house. I will do it. And I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor. He will lie with your wives in broad daylight. For you did it secretly. I will do this thing." God is saying, "I will do the thing." He's delivering the punishment. It's crazy how a believer can read this nonsense and rather than just admitting it says what it says, go into like uber lie mode.
It's not that. It's that you muted me in the middle of me speaking.
I was already speaking and you didn't like what I had to say and you weren't going to stop
you're
me. So
taking something-
I muted you. So again, in the passage referred to, who's doing the action? Who does it say is doing it?
Nathan is speaking about what
Who is he
said
speaking
that God
for?
said as a prophet.
Who's he speaking for?
He is speaking to David.
Who's he
about
speaking for, not to?
based on what God said
Who's
to
he
him.
speaking for?
He's speaking about what God said to him.
Who's he
It's not
speaking for? Answer the question I asked, not the question you want me to ask.
He's speaking the prophecy that
From
God said to
who?
him.
Oh, okay, so
prophecy from God.
when it says "Thus saith the Lord," the words that
Right.
follow are the Lord's words, are they not?
You're making it seem like a bunch of people went out
When
and did
it
a bunch
says
of
"Thus saith the Lord," do the words follow belong to the Lord?
So this is just a silly question. That
When
I'm
it
not gonna go
says
back and forth
"Thus
on
saith
because
the
the Bible
Lord,"
doesn't have
do
to
the
argue
words
for
that
taking it
follow
out of
belong
context.
to the Lord?
If you had any merit here, I would argue with you. But you really, there's nothing.
Don't
it's very
run
there.
from the question. It's a kindergarten question. I know you can do it. When
I
the
can do
prophet
it.
says "Thus saith the Lord," do the words that follow belong to the Lord?
This is why we don't we have these silly debates because
not silly.
It's not a debate. You're upset that
No one's upset. I want you to stop being a dishonest coward and answer the question. You're saying
stop
that
muting me.
God didn't claim he was doing the thing. So now I have to walk you through a kindergarten example and demonstrate to you that God is in fact the one speaking here, even though Nathan is the one delivering the message. So in the passage, Nathan is speaking for the Lord. He's uttering the thing that God told him to utter. And the thing that he's uttered is, "Thus saith the Lord, I is the Lord, I will raise up trouble against you from within your own house, and I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor, and he shall lie with your wives in broad daylight. For you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel in broad daylight." A punishment given by Yahweh, not by Nathan.
May I speak now since you keep muting me?
The time to speak is not in the middle of my sentence. This should actually be quite obvious.
It should be, but also personal attacks are not necessary in an actual debate.
They are quite necessary when you're acting like a child.
See, they're not. I've never attacked your character. There's
Well,
no reason to
well,
be going that far unless if you have a real debate.
I'm
then,
describing your character, which is of a child.
I mean, if that's your only argument, then
It's not my argument,
stupid.
it's my observation.
If that's how you feel and we want to do feelings instead of facts.
Well, then show me where God's not talking in the passage. Stop crying about it and show me.
So, again, I would never. In 16,
We're
Absalom
in
is the one
11 and
that knows
12.
about this
Address
prophecy.
address 11 and 12 first.
I've already addressed 11 and 12.
You haven't done it yet. Who's talking?
Nathan is speaking
And
about what the Lord said
whose
to
words
him.
whose words
You're
are they?
taking it out of context.
Whose words are
implying
they?
that you're making
Whose
it
words
seem
are
like
they?
Nathan's.
Who?
You're
Oh,
making it
okay.
seem
No, you're
like
wrong. We'll try this again. They're the Lord's words being
someone can
delivered
just stay here and be
by.
disrespected, but you want to make false lies. That's really sad.
They're the Lord's words, and they're being uttered by Nathan. I think everybody in the audience knows this. You don't listen. You can't lie to me, and you can't lie to the audience. We know how words work. When Nathan says, "Thus saith the Lord," and then he utters a quote from the Lord, it's clearly the thing that God is speaking. These are God's words. God is saying, "I." He's the I in this sentence.
You're taking it out of context.
I'm
And
not. Okay. Listen, child, you're actually incapable of being honest. You're even though your book says not to lie, you're incapable of
you're
not
lying.
lying. You're not actually capable of addressing what words work. What words are in the sentence. So this conversation can't move forward because you can't be honest. But simply ask Lauren. We're simply not going to ask you anything since you can't give honest answers. But we will send you back to the comments so you can cry down there.